How we work. We know something about traditional analysis. We don't use most of that. Modestly said, I know a great deal about step relationships. I've been living them all my life. I've been doing this kind of work since 1975. So with the model there we use is we teach you how they work, how they don't work. People need to know the classic dynamics, the ways of behaving in step relationships. So we're going to be teaching you how that is. The model we use to do that is like the model of business management. What's the desired outcome? What's the action plan? What are the loving expectations of the couple? How do we handle time, energy, money, discipline? All those kind of things we'll be putting to you if you don't put them to us. And what we endeavor to do is to make this system work. So if you came here to get a divorce, it's not a good place to be. So, all right. Okay, so we need to get our intact. This is the nuclear system here. Have you started counseling?
I did.
Recently?
I'm seeing a pastoral counselor at work. Occasionally.
About the situation?
About the step-family situation.
Right. 22 words or less. What are you getting out of this right now? What's happening for you? What's it teaching you?
Basically just how to deal with my own feelings and my new role. The transition between being a career woman and a wife, which was easy to incorporate into the role of being a stepmother, functioning in a step family.
Dudley?
I'm in counseling. Had 2 hospitalizations for depression.
Taking medication now? What are you taking?
Wellbutrin.
Say again?
Wellbutrin.
It's an antidepressant?
B-U-T-R-I-N.
I don't know that one. An antidepressant.
Antidepressant. And then therapy.
22 words or less. What are you getting out of therapy?
Nothing.
Get on to that. Okay, now I'm going to ask you a very important question. When you leave here, not today, but when you finish working with me and you say, bye, Jeanette, thank you very much. We'll call you in 3 months, we promise. And you would have everything that you wanted, 3 wishes of what you wanted out of this system here. Hopefully wishes will take plane crashes we can't deliver, wishes that are grounded in some sort of reality. What would they be? If I were your fairy godmother and I could deliver those 3 wishes, I want them individually, and they should be first-person singular. Like Cheryl, will be handling my relationship better with Rita or Chuck. First-person singular. Think about them very carefully. Your 3 wishes from me. This is a fanciful way of putting forth your action plan. What do you want? What are you going to get out of this? Think about them carefully, because you just may get them. When one person talks, I want the other person to remain quiet.
I want to know how to relate to my wife as a husband with stepchildren.
Now, Dudley, I come out of, and with your biological child, I come out of years of journalism. So what I'm going to be needing from you is a picture of what goes on now in your relationship with your children and your wife. What goes on that you don't like, pictures that are classic, that happen again and again, that you don't like, and things that you do like. So we need to know specifically, what do you want to change here? So what happens there?
Okay. I'm caught in the middle between Cheryl's anger and the children's disobedience and
okay,
just being children.
Yeah. Tell me about their disobedience. What do you define as disobedience? What happens with the children?
When they don't, when they visit friends without permission.
So they break rules in the household?
When they, they don't change their clothes when they come in from school, and they go outside and get their clothes dirty. They jump on the bed.
What do you do when they jump on the bed? Chuck is 16?
It's 10.
10, I'm sorry. 10, I was going to say.
Express our disapproval, our anger, put a sign on the bed saying don't jump.
And what happens?
For dedication.
Now let him, this is his reality. This is totally what I'm getting from him, and I need you to listen to, is that this is what he sees, his picture of the world.
What happens? Children feel rejected.
So when you discipline them, children feel rejected?
I think so.
So when you tell them not to jump on the bed, they feel rejected?
They become fearful, afraid they're going to do something to break the relationship.
Have another break in relationships,
Yeah. They feel guilty for causing Dad trouble. Because it makes him feel apologetic for them.
Okay, that's quite classic, Dudley, in relationships with males with children in the household, and females too. That you feel that you really reject those children if you discipline them. And what we talk about here is that discipline equals love, and that children to be loved, they have to have boundaries. And that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about. But the issue here is really, one of them is discipline, isn't it? Okay, what else? Give me some more.
What else do I want? The other is related to that, and it involves showing the children love, acceptance, and affirmation, and helping them to really feel that, regardless.
And tell me what happens now when you show the children love and acceptance and affirmation. What happens?
Well, you can just see a little light going up in their eyes. They smile real big, and they feel, I think they express a feeling of security, it counters their sense of rejection. I think they experienced rejection from their mother. She primarily was the one who broke up their house, their home.
Mom left. Mom wanted the divorce.
Mom had an affair in front of the children. And they were part of the affair.
So you feel a lot of guilt about this, and you've got to really kind of make this up to them, this rejection, this almost the shaming that mother did, there. And those operative words of security. Security and rejection are real important.
I don't believe they know where they belong, and they feel like children without a home.
Tell me, what do we see them doing when you get when they feel like children without a home? What happens?
Withdraw.
They withdraw.
Extreme grief. Fear.
The children. How do they express fear?
Going to their rooms and hiding under the bed, in the closet, under the covers, and refusing to talk, slamming the door, just wanting to get in a small space and pull the door.
They go right back to the fetal position, don't they?
It is.
Yeah. So what happens with you, Dudley? Do you have family meals together at all? Is there a time that you ritually as a family come together when the kids know exactly what's expected of them?
We have morning time that I spend with the children.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about meals with this 10-year-old and 7-year-old.
A couple of times a week in the evenings, we have meals together with all of us.
Mm-hmm. And how does that go?
Usually goes pretty well. Depends on what kind of day we've had. The children really love the attention.
Mm-hmm. And is there some predictability about the meal? About the way they're supposed to behave, the way they're supposed to sit?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we're looking at here, security is also about structure. Structure is about discipline, about love. And so what you're saying here is that these a couple of times a week when you have meals, the kids have predictability. They know what you want. And lots of times that goes well. Is that accurate?
I think it's going better now. Once they have come to know that they have expectations, but they also have acceptance and love along with the expectations.
Mm-hmm. That's real important to you, I get that.
It's affirming to them when they obey the rules and when we compliment them. They really like that.
And when they disobey the rules?
I think they experience shame.
Mm-hmm. And when you deal with them, if they've jumped on the bed and they disobeyed the rules, is that shameful?
I think they experience shame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we need a form of discipline that's without shame, don't we? Now, do you take lessons? Do you take like tennis lessons or anything like that, or any kind of golf or any kind of lessons in your life?
Yeah.
What kind of lessons have you taken?
Specific lessons?
Mm-hmm. Like we had a teacher that you liked who taught you something.
Okay. Never experienced one.
That you liked, that taught you something. So you have no experience with positive discipline. So a real important thing for you, Dudley, it seems to me, is to have some experience with positive discipline.
I think I'm having one now with my supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
But I think most of my experience, I didn't experience a lot of shame in my household, but a lot of absence.
Mm-hmm. Well, see what John Bradshaw says, shame is about not that, you didn't make your bed, but shame on you for existing. Your whole person is no good because you didn't make your bed.
Well, that's my life.
Right. So for you, here is to deal something with all the shame stuff, the stuff that you come from, because how can you teach positive disciplining and structure if you don't know it? Have you ever heard of John Bradshaw? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does a whole lot of stuff on shame. We have some tapes here on shame-based communication. It'd be real important to look there for that. So one of the things here is to talk about positive discipline skills. That's something you're going to need to model and see, because you don't have that. It's a new language for you.
Mm-hmm.
A new repertoire. So I have about 3 wishes. Anything else?
Is that 3?
Yeah, do you want one more?
No.
This fairy godmother will give you an extra one.
Dealing with myself and just exactly what
Okay,
you're
so the 4th one is the self. Mm-hmm. And shame. Okay. We'll freeze frame before we go to Cheryl. So I don't want any feedback right now, but I just want to mark off for you. We know that Dudley is visual. He gets a picture of the world, and then he has some feelings about it. His resourceful state, it's better for him to see the world than feel about it. There's a lot of stuff that we left out. That some of his high values is rejection, is a lack of rejection and security, coming a lot out of his own family of origin stuff, and that we need to give him some modeling and direct instruction, which he's not familiar with except with his new supervisor, about how do you discipline, because it's not in his system. It's not there. He can't do it if it's not there. And there's a lot of stuff that we didn't notice, we didn't cover. But now we have a clear, again, those headlines again, where we're going with Dudley. I don't want any questions right now. Cheryl, you're up.
I would like to know how to eliminate my anger. I see that as my greatest problem. I have a lot of anger about my divorce. It's still unresolved. I have anger towards the children's mother for her behavior, I guess, towards my husband, as well as rejection that I'm sure the children feel. I have some anger towards my mother and her lack of support of my new family. I'd say that's my biggest unresolved issue.
How about some anger about this whole situation here?
Yeah, at times I'm angry and I just want to isolate myself and not deal with it, withdraw.
And you do that?
I go to my room sometimes. I don't want to eat with the family. I don't want to talk to anyone, not even Dudley. Just remove myself from it for a while. Then I'm better able to come back, but that was really hard in the beginning because it just reinforced everybody's sense of rejection. So it wasn't positive for anybody, except I felt that need to do that for myself.
Eliminate your anger about the prior divorce, about the children's mother, and your mother, the lack of support. What about your expectations here of this whole system here?
I'd say I have pretty high, unrealistic expectations of what I think the children should and should not do.
Everybody does. Don't feel alone. You'd be in the minority if you had, on-target expectations. So, seems somewhere here there's got some anger to do. Oh, these are all important, the divorced mother and the children and your mother. But to look at those unrealistic expectations and see if we can bring them into whatever is reality. That makes sense? To look at those. What do you think those were, those unrealistic expectations? Give me a scene of that now, like a picture of what goes on in the system that you really get angry about and that may have to do with unrealistic expectations, or may not.
I think I thought when we first married, one, that would just be the two of us. So it was sort of a shock 3 months later.
Yes.
2 children arrived on the scene kind of unannounced. I'd only spent a couple of weekends with them, so I was feeling pretty inadequate about the role. And I think I still feel very inadequate as a mother. I feel very good about myself career-wise. But I think as far as the family expectations, I thought it would be like my nuclear family. I had an older brother, 3 years older than myself. There was just the two of us. My parents were Christians, a fairly stable, loving home. My father's the nurturer. My mother was the critical parent. And I see us as the same thing. I'm the critical parent. My husband is the nurturer. I have stronger needs for boundaries, rules.
Honor your needs for boundaries and rules. Those are your needs right now. That's your reality. It may not be Dudley's reality. That's your reality. Look, you've got these. Look at this shock of being a young bride. 3 months later, you get 2 kids who've got all kinds of trauma of divorce. Mother's had an affair underneath their nose. Dad's depressed. Superwoman.
Kids are angry.
And you don't even have, muscles of steel, and you can't even fly. So some unrealistic expectations about yourself.
I think at first I tried to be everything to everybody. And then from knocking myself out for 6 months, and then I felt angry and resentful about what I had done that never seemed to make any difference. So I guess it's a feeling of lack of control too with me.
So
I'm
expectations.
very much a controlling person. I'm in management. I chose to go into management because that gave me more control, and it gave me the ability to create change and make things happen. And I can't do that at home.
Right, and that's real frustrating, isn't it? Those unrealistic expectations you have about yourself, about fixing this whole thing here. You're going to come in there,
I can fix everybody. The kids, Dudley, Rita, my mother.
Take that all on your shoulders and wonder how come you feel depressed when you can't fix it. Look at your expectations about yourself in line here. What is that serenity prayer about? God, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference? Well, that's something here for you, right? Okay. So expectations that are realistic of Cheryl here. What's your role?
People tell me that I'm just Dudley's wife, and at times I would like to believe that's true, but I don't see that as realistic either, because I feel like if that is the only role that I have in this family, that is even more isolating. Or
what does just Dudley's wife mean these days? I don't know. We can, you know, I'm not even going to ask you what that means, because it's too complex anyway. It's not going to, you know. So really expectations of Cheryl and expectations of the situation, and to honor the fact that you have some real grieving here to do about you married this man, and it's all going to be the two of you together, and all of a sudden these kids are damaged from divorce. There's damage there. They do need superhuman, or certainly very aware efforts to handle them.
At times I think we're probably more alike than different, because I feel like everything they've experienced, I experienced too.
Who's more alike?
Coping skills.
You have children and you are more alike?
Yeah, I think that children feel the same rejection, anger, fear, all the feelings that I had when my marriage failed. So I feel like on one hand I can really understand it. On the other hand, I feel that I am sometimes targeted for that, and it really should go to their mother. And
you are scapegoated. I cannot hit upon my mother. She is half of my genes, half of my blood. I can't hit her, but I can hit you.
That's it.
That's a dynamic. Be aware. Okay, so you're more like the children. Some here that you've got something with them. Okay, I got the first wish. That's all the first wish. What's the second wish?
That was all three.
No.
The relationship with my mother, I guess I would like some healing or some way to kind of tell my mother to either keep her negative opinion to herself or relate to me and my family in a positive way, instead of making me feel guilty that I'm married and now have a stepfamily. Tell me what goes on with your mother. Give me some traditional kind of classic scenes with your mother as to what does this critical parent say to you. Classic example is she called me at work yesterday to ask me if I really needed to come on this trip. She felt like that I probably had a lot of pressure at work, which I do. It was a bad time for me to leave my job, and why did I really need to go anyway? She told me she wished I'd never married. I mean, she's told me this several times. She knew my life was a lot more complicated, and I thought, no joke, yeah, it is a lot more complicated. But, you know, I already identified that. She doesn't need to tell me what I already know. And I don't know if I'm still needing some affirmation from my mother that I did not receive as a child, because my mother always expected me to be perfect.
Do you see this one here a little bit where Mom says, I wish you don't really go on this trip. You've got too much to do anyway. And how come you married this guy with this whole step situation and it's impossible? See that sort of double bind stuff there?
So she's really proud of me on the one hand.
But she says, do it and don't do it. This is wrong, but don't get any help.
Then she criticizes me for what I don't do with the children, that I'm not loving and giving enough, and that I am, like, she was super mom and she did it all. She worked, she was a good mother. I'm working and I come home, and sometimes I really don't want to talk to anybody, and I do isolate myself. And I'm sure sometimes the children do feel rejected because of that.
So Mom also tells you don't do enough, but you shouldn't be in the scene. See the double bind there? It's like, Cheryl, I really like you very much. So I'm pushing you away and saying, like, you know, why don't you come over sometime? It's like a real pushing you away at the same time. So you can't sort. When somebody gives you a double message, you're like totally stunned. And it's important, you know, so it's important for Mom here, something about here of like that detached with love, separation a little bit from her. That's her model of the reality. We can respect it. Don't have to take it unto you. There. Okay, third wish.
I guess I think Dudley and I have had a good relationship. It's been very strong and positive. It's not been without its stresses, obviously. And I guess I just want that to continue. I feel like we are very fortunate in that we have good communication skills, and I think probably coming here is the best investment that we will ever make.
Right. So you want to keep the couple strength, you want to build the couple strength, build on that. Very important in this whole system that you want to do that, because that's got to be the rock upon which the whole thing rests. You know, Satir says the couple is the architect of the family, you know, together. Okay, where do you want to start?
Where?
Is that the both of us?
That's both of you. Oh, let me just finish. With Cheryl, notice that she stayed in her feelings all the way through, always sort of down in her feelings, talking about this stuff. So her way of seeing the world, experiencing the world, is her head is down into her feelings. The only place she moved up into seeing, see, when we see, we can't feel, is talking about her mother. So that's a strategy for her with her mother, is to see what's going on and to feel it also, to see and feel, to see and feel. But she stayed in her feelings, so we need to get her to see a picture of what could happen. Dudley, we know, can do that already, but he goes down into his feelings too. When we go down into feelings, we're not in a resourceful state of dealing with things. So much of therapy is about, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? How do you feel? In this kind of situation, it's almost like crisis intervention. Like, you know, the dead bodies are strewn all over the battlefield. Okay, doctor, how do you feel about it? You can't feel sometimes here. You need to just look, and then you can feel in appropriate ways when you get the looking and the structuring and the you know, handled here. If you get too much into feelings, you're helpless. So we need to move Cheryl out of feelings. We know she has an ability to see, and bring her up to see what she needs to do. Where do you want to start?
Where?
Is that the both of us?
That's both of you. Oh, let me just finish. With Cheryl, notice that she stayed in her feelings all the way through, always sort of down in her feelings, talking about this stuff. So her way of seeing the world, experiencing the world, is her head is down into her feelings. The only place she moved up into seeing, see, when we see, we can't feel, is talking about her mother. So that's a strategy for her with her mother, is to see what's going on and to feel it also, to see and feel, to see and feel. But she stayed in her feelings, so we need to get her to see a picture of what could happen. Dudley, we know, can do that already, but he goes down into his feelings too. When we go down into feelings, we're not in a resourceful state of dealing with things. So much of therapy is about, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? How do you feel? In this kind of situation, it's almost like crisis intervention. Like, you know, the dead bodies are strewn all over the battlefield. Okay, doctor, how do you feel about it? You can't feel sometimes here. You need to just look, and then you can feel in appropriate ways when you get the looking and the structuring and the you know, handled here. If you get too much into feelings, you're helpless. So we need to move Cheryl out of feelings. We know she has an ability to see, and bring her up to see what she needs to do. And notice what I didn't pick up on with her. There's a minefield here, both of them, of things to pick, the traditional therapy would pick up on. And notice how we went over that. Again, this is dealing with what's here right now. This is our model of the reality. Where do we begin?
I think the last foundation, of course, is couple strength.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's where the crisis is. Where is the crisis?
Mm-hmm.
My anger.
Mm-hmm. And your anger over some legitimate things that are happening in the system here. In the sense that we don't, I mean, it seems to me you two have different notions of discipline. Do you talk about that?
We have different models.
Yeah. Do you talk about that?
Yeah, we talk about it.
Do you feel free to talk about what your reality is? One of the things I would use here is, like, you know what, they call this thing as AB reality, for you to be able to talk about each other's reality. So when you think, Dudley, what you're doing right there is just like, I don't agree with it at all, I think it's terrible. That this is A's reality, this is B's reality. The way we are is a series of stimulus responses. I, in my family, genetically had to probably be blonde and fair-skinned and whatever, and blue-eyed. Somebody else is, because of the, you know, their life, they like red, I like pink. People have different models of reality, different imprints upon the tape of their life. And what we do in this culture lots of times is we say, listen, you come into my reality, your reality is wrong. There's a lot of permission in this culture to litigate realities as opposed to honoring the differences. What we're talking about here, we need to, in a step situation, is to create what I call a C reality. Move from column A, move from column B. A C reality can be an agreement to disagree. But it's real important to honor the different ways that someone sees that reality. So it's like the way you talk about this is, I see, I feel, I hear, that the way you talk to your child right there is going to make him not do it. And he says, well, I see, I hear, I feel that he would feel rejected if I was so tough the way you want me to be. Don't come to a conclusion. It's just, I use that word, as opposed to you are wrong, kids should be seen and not heard, and you blah, 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 critical parent. An important way of languaging with each other. Again, that goes back to my thing about learning history in 3 different countries, in the sense of you honor that reality and, you know, honor one where you are, or where that person is. Okay, so on discipline here, I mean, I'm looking at some of those things, or meals. What happens at meals?
It used to be a battleground.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am a nurse, concerned about their nutrition, and I probably carried it too far as what I expected.
What happens now?
The children have been going to a child psychologist for about 6 weeks. That's helped a lot for everybody. Her recommendation to Dudley, to me, because I didn't talk to her about this, I've been a couple times myself, is let them have a choice. They'll choose what they need. Don't force them to eat.
Don't force them to come to the, okay.
And it got to be a real issue, not so much with Chuck, but with the little girl, Brandy. She's real, well, both children are real thin. She's very frail. She still sucks her thumb at the age of 7, and that's a big issue in the house, too. Something, again, that I would like to see change.
That's her security blanket
really
right now.
Me, but I realize
that's where she's at. She's telling us where she's at.
So now I try to give them a choice. I try to have something from each food group and hope that they will choose it, but it's not now that I put it on their plate and say, well, you can't leave the table until it.
How much do you put on their plate?
Small portions.
Well, like
like
a good rule is like you have to have a teaspoon. Try a teaspoon of
I
that.
usually say 2 bites. I mean, I'm not. It's not like I sit there and say.
Well, how does that work? How does that work now?
She's eating better than she was, and I've tried to allow her to have choices, and I've tried to take the conflict out of the meals. Because I was
Dudley, do
so
you
I
agree with
didn't
this?
enjoy it.
As this is going on, do you agree with this way of handling meals? What's your reality here?
I think at first it was too strict. When Chuck is in a growing phase, he likes most everything. He just eats tremendous, and we affirm him for that. Little girl takes 45 minutes to eat small portions, and most of it in tears. And
has there been a meal ever, even like a Thanksgiving, where you really felt that this was really wonderful and everybody's really happy and the conversation was wonderful?
A few times. It's gotten better lately.
Okay, so what is it about those times that really works?
It's the feeling of acceptance and communication.
How do you create that? Seeing a picture, Dudley, of the table.
Now,
Seeing a
looking at my
picture,
finger.
yeah, right, of what happens when it really works well.
The
What
children
went
talk
on?
about what they've done at school.
Uh-huh.
They talk about the positive things that they've experienced, and they share with us those things, and we affirm them in that. And along with that goes the meal, and they don't. A lot of what has happened lately. The last meal we had together was Tuesday, and I noticed Brandy had a pretty large portion of peas. She hates green peas. But in the process of talking and sharing, I think she ate the peas and didn't even know it. And she ate almost everyone, and did not have to be.
And what are you two doing at the table? What are you two?
Listening and affirming them, and trying to pay attention to.
We need to, what I'm going to do, we table this is to some other time tomorrow when we work on tools. The meal is, I want to end right now, the meal is a very important place. It is a kind of a metaphor for the whole relationship. What's happened in this culture is that people, first we lost lunch, then we lost breakfast, and now with all the activities, aerobics and after-school activities, we've lost dinner. And so, and then dinner now is something with television on. And so people have no ritualized way of coming together. And a lot of the work we do as far as one of the tools of these families is to create a meal. I have 16 steps for doing the meal, and we ban television, and we create some ritual meals in the system. And so that's some of the tools, things we'll be doing tomorrow. Okay, thanks a lot. We need to bring the family back, we need to bring family meals back. Notice also when I'm sitting with them, I tend to lean forward, but what you model also is you begin to breathe with the client. You hold your body the way they hold your body. One had their legs crossed, one had, now they both have them crossed. One had them uncrossed. So you begin to be, it's establishing rapport with them. You can talk at the same tempo. If I want them to move into seeing, I use visual. Can you see that for me? Visual predicates. I want to bring them out. I'll use my hands. Can you see? And they'll move with me. So we don't go into all this like, how come you're feeling so much? Da, 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 da. You just move them out of the system that they're in. And you watch Dudley when he went right down to feeling about the meal, all rejection and all that kind of stuff. He felt all that great thing. Not a resourceful place to orchestrate a meal from. So when he moved right up to notice his whole demeanor changed when he moved up to seeing the meal. And you tend to stay a lot in feelings. And we need to have you see things and not feel. Think of yourself as Alan Alda on the battlefield there with all these people dying. You've just got to triage. You've got to think about, see who's still moving and bring them back in and take care of them. Sometimes. As a journalist in the beginning of my career, I worked for Radio Free Europe, and they killed my president. They shot John Kennedy. And I had then fought for and had a young female assistant. And so we were sitting there in my office crying and crying and the boss walks in and says, "What are you women doing, for God's sake? Stop that, go get out of here. You know, we don't need this here." So I looked at her and I said, "Roberta, we need to not feel. We're going to feel in 36 hours. And that's where some of my stuff began. But as a good journalist, you need to see the story. You need to see what's going on. It was not a resourceful place for us to be feeling about the president at that time. That was not our job. You know, again, a sexist sort of remark, a gender remark. Men are very often trained to do this more than women are. But about family situations, then men can get real mushy and real feeling. And children. So just notice where somebody is.
I see so much of my husband in you, in Dudley. Everything that you said at the beginning, that you feel, that the children feel, I should say, your perception of what the children are feeling is exactly, and what you're saying is what I feel, only maybe to a different degree, but so often, I mean, I see, we have not primary custody, it's shared, but they're with their mother more than they are with us. And I know that I know their home very well. I go there a lot, and I know what they eat and what they don't eat. They eat, disgusting on the floor with the dogs, and it's disgusting. And we make mealtime it's very important. We have them during the week, and we come home. We have a snack after school. We have a structured dinner. He comes home, for a couple hours for dinner, goes right back to work. But it's the only time where they know that this is what we're going to do. We're going to eat. They're not performing. They're not, doing anything except we're all interacting.
And that's where the intimacy is at. The intimacy is there when you know exactly you're going to be at the table for a certain period of time, and you know the order of things. Again, not child-dominated conversations. I mean, the adults take charge, but that's the time where you share.
It's something that has only happened in the last 6 to 8 months. Before that, we had the Domino's in front of the pizza in front of the TV and, on the floor and everything else, because we were afraid that they would reject us if we were too different from what they did at home.
It takes courage to move from that place to place,
to live a different life than what they had.
And in this household, we do as in this household. In, the history of Germany is different than that of Switzerland. That's what you do.
Mother. They started that was interesting.
Yeah, I bet.
And it had to change. It has to change. And
there's another thing going on here too, that I am sort of in the traditional male role as a female. I'm really the main income provider, because Dudley kind of lost his whole career and he's starting all over, and he's more in the caregiver role that was traditionally female, and I think that creates a lot of, I think he feels inadequate and like he's not providing, and sometimes I feel like I feel like the traditional man that comes home and he wants his wife to have the dinner on the table and the kids to leave you alone for 30 minutes. Don't talk to me, don't look at me, don't, and my dad was that way. I mean, I can see,
you taking
and yet I'm the woman, and it's like sometimes I wish I was the one that came home and
That's real confusing, isn't it? Yeah.
It is.
And with the power of that income, you should have some power as to have say over the emotional state of the household, as the traditional male has, and you don't.
But it causes us some additional.
Yeah, that's a whole other added complication. Yeah, this is deliciously complex, you two, and classic. 30 minutes to do your intake. So you need to establish rapport, the way you meet the person, the first things you say. This is about what social work calls engagement, what we call establishing rapport. Begin to match the person, begin to know what their representational systems are as you talk to them right in the beginning. That's why now I'm letting the office put the name, address, a phone number on the genealogram. But I hate to give that up because that's part of my establishing who they are right up front. But just begin as you draw things and whatever else to see what systems they're in, and just have that in your mind's eye. So the first thing you do is you find out what do they do for a living. First thing you do is draw the genealogram and explain a little bit about how you work. To make them feel comfortable, you establish rapport right in the beginning. 2, explain how we work. 3, draw the genealogram. If you have some genealograms like this, you show them the genealogram first. You won't have that. Draw the genealogram. Now you want to Use your time appropriately. So you don't want to take more than 10 minutes drawing the geneagram, and then you get their 3 wishes. And you introduce, so 4 is first you introduce the 3 wishes. Remember, a very important command is when you finish here, when you leave us, when we're done with this work. So you're presupposing success, presupposing a positive outcome. What then would you have? What would be 3 wishes? This is a fanciful way of putting your doing your outcomes, your objectives, management by objective. So, and then it goes, think about them very carefully. In other words, you're stacking right now. You're stacking with what NLP calls future pacing, or you might call presuppositions of success. This is how you establish rapport too. Presuppositions here.
And you get into the issues that they're here for as you're doing the genegram?
No, absolutely not.
No. So when do you get into...
That's your whole report. You're just drawing then. And you're watching, especially the couple, who answers you when you ask for their home telephone number. Who's the one that gives you their address? Or who's the one that tells you how old the kid is? And what's her voice tone, if it's only one person, when she says, and John, he's 14. You know a lot about John already. So this is where you use your audio acuity here. You're listening to so all you're doing is drawing the geneagram. And then when you do it, remember, it's sort of like you're a kid at school. Well, there it is. There's your family. You know. So you've completed this. Yay. And, you know, it's how much of yourself do you share also to create the metaphors, to create the rapport stuff and safety. So then you go, what do they do after the geneagram? What do they do for a living? Forget about the psychological background. I do that, but forget about that here. Because see, it's interesting to find out that somebody's been to 6 therapists and they've failed, and he says very often, well, she will say it too, but a 0, 22 words or less. What did you get out of it? Then they'll say 0, or they'll say, you know, lots of things. So you know what their notion of therapy is, what their experience has been. I mean, you could do this, but in the interest of time, do it if you feel like you want to do it. Then you go right to the 3 wishes. Then you go right to the 3 wishes.
But what if you're not, before you get to the 3 wishes, should you be clear on the intake, what's bringing them?
No, that's the other way of doing it. See, it's Elaine, why are you here? Let me know why you're here right now, huh? Why'd you come here to see me? You know, but there's a lot of that, you know. So the rapport stuff is in drawing the family, is getting all this data from you, getting all the stuff to me. And then I'm going to work with you on your wishes. So this is the contract, and this is why you're here, but it's a more fanciful, to me it's a more elegant way of doing it, as to why you're here. Because, yeah.
When you explain how we work, what is that?
Directive counseling?
Directive, yeah, we know something about traditional analysis. There is a how we work. You've got that in your memberships. We know something about traditional analysis. We don't use that. The model here is really, I say we know something about behavior mod, transactional analysis, or whatever things you work in. But what we do here is we educate people, we counsel people as to the dynamics of step relationships. We counsel them and educate them as to the classic ways that the step family is different than the intact family. And we do this modeled on the systems of business management. What's the desired outcome? What's the action plan? What are the loving expectations of the couple? Now, most people have gotten this in some of those mailings that we go, but they haven't read it. But it's all new information when they sit down here. So what are the loving expectations of the couple? We'll be dealing with issues such as discipline, time, energy, money, duties, responsibilities, contributions. By now they're happy and hope that you shut up. of each member of the system. This makes them a little bit want to champ at the bit, like, okay, let's do it already. But you're selling. This is selling right now. This is your selling. This is what we do. And our outcome, and we go for a positive outcome. And I go like, you see this, the system on the page here, we're going to go to make this work. And so if you're here to have a divorce, this is the wrong place to be. So you're setting that twice. We go to make this work, and if you want a divorce, this is the wrong place. That's 2 sets. You know, pushing, molding. This is what you're here for. And then you chunk on the 3 wishes. Chunking is very important. You chunk, I want peace in my family. I want to feel good about my home. I want world peace. I don't want any more muggings in New York. And I want to find a parking space for my car all the time. People want things like that. And so, and there's no confrontation here when they say, well, I want peace in my home. And sometimes I say, well, we need to bring that down to doable bite-sized pieces. What we like to do here is sort of storyboard that like they do in advertising. So if we came, and I use the metaphor, like in television, if I would come in with my cameras and do a piece on that, what will we see in your household that had to do with peace in your home, or that didn't have to do with peace in your home? What will we be seeing? What are the behaviors and the actions that are going on? Threw you all into trance right now. Keep writing. Because that's part of that work is about trance. And so what will we be seeing? So let me know. So you begin to write. And you're chunking that wish down to a doable. Is it discipline? Is it that when she comes home there's total chaos? Is it that the 14-year-old Johnny, who's the guy that's acting out the whole system? You need to have a clear picture, just like a television reporter. You need to be able to give me, if I stopped you right after your 3 wishes, I want to know, what's your psychosocial on this family here? What's going on in the system? And and what you're dealing with here. Discipline issues with the third, But you chunk that down and let it come from their words. So you're chunking it down to doable bite-sized pieces. Very often I'll say, well, we can barely get peace here on 76th Street. And so that's kind of like a thing that you want about for the whole world, like peace in your home. Let's see if we can get that down more specific to smaller pieces that we can deal with. And then you do 1, 2, 3 wishes. And then after you've done the 3 wishes, you might ask them, knowing yourself, where do you want to go from here?
That's where your talent lies.
What would you say?
You have the ability to, people hit you with such tremendous problems, and she knows exactly where to place it. She knows it's discipline, she knows it's boundaries, she knows exactly where to place it. So
yeah, what you go for, yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Where do we go from here?
It's like, where do you want to go? So you may right away after you've heard such diverse. So you're doing 1 person here, but even with 1 person, you can do the A/B reality. I'll do that sometimes up front. Or ask them where do they want to go from here, and that's their presenting problem now. They're telling you the presenting problem.